Here are three stories about the first Rebbe of Chabad fleeing from Napoleon. Napoleon took a huge army and attacked Russia, and he won. He won. He conquered city after city, place after place. But as we said before, the the Russians, when they were ordered that when they left their homes to flee from Napoleon, but as they were fleeing, they were told to burn everything behind them, their fields and everything, so that there wouldn't be any food for Napoleon's troops. And Napoleon depended on this. It even got to Moscow, and it was empty. They had burned everything they could, and people had left. So Napoleon was pretty depleted, and he left. But according to he left, and the winter set in a little bit early, and then the Russians, they did like guerrilla warfare against him, and it depleted his troops so that he came back with almost nothing. He went there with, I don't know, look and see, like about 3 million people. Somewhere he came back with like 1/10 of his army. But in any case, in the beginning, it wasn't that way. In the beginning, Napoleon was invincible, invincible. He won battles that no one dreamed that he would win, and he was an amazing soldier. I mean, it's very similar to what the Nazis did. You know, in the beginning, they had these amazing victories, and then all of a sudden, when they came to Russia, so they lost. Okay, but as they were approaching, they were coming in to conquering everywhere. So the Alter Rebbe's son, who was eventually would become the next Rebbe, he said, "What's going to be, Father? What's going to be?" You know, the Napoleon is winning, and interestingly enough, I mean, it's going to come out to be more than three stories over here. But interestingly enough, the first Rebbe of Chabad opposed Napoleon. All of the great leaders of Judaism were in favor of Napoleon. Napoleon was a man you could talk to. Napoleon was, you know, for freedom and for equality and for liberty. And he said he would break down the ghettos, and there would be togetherness with the. So all of the other rabbis, they were very in favor of it. You know, it was very, how do you say, oppressive situation that they were in under the Tsar, under the church. And the church, of course, always wanted to force the religion on everybody, on everybody. And Napoleon, he said, just be free, you know, you can do whatever you want. So all the great leaders of Judaism were for Napoleon, and the Alter Rebbe was not only was he against Napoleon, but he also sent spies. We told you about that story. Spies to spy on Napoleon and to bring back information. And Napoleon didn't suspect the religious people because they were all with him. They were all with him. So he thought. Okay, so one story was that the Alter Rebbe's son said to him, "What's going to be? Napoleon is winning." And the Alter Rebbe was in tefillin, and he said, "I have tefillin on my head, and I can't tell you anything that's not 100% true." Said, "I'm telling you exactly what's going to happen." And he said exactly what's going to happen to Napoleon. Over here, this is going to happen over there. And everything that he said was exactly the way it was. Came Rosh Hashanah, and all the other great leaders realized that the first Rebbe of Chabad, he had tremendous powers of holiness, and so did they. But they realized that whoever sounded the shofar first on Rosh Hashanah would get his way. If the Alter Rebbe, Shner Zalman, if he sounded his shofar first, as Napoleon would lose. And if they sounded theirs, then Napoleon would win. And sure enough, they prayed as fast as they possibly could, superhuman speeds, and they read the Torah, and they sounded the shofar, and all of them said that the Alter Rebbe sounded the shofar first. And they asked him, how did he do it? And he said that I just woke up in the morning and I sounded the shofar. I didn't do all the praying and the reading of the Torah. I did that afterwards. So you can say, what, they didn't think about that. Think that, I mean, it's a simple thing. If sounding the shofar was so important, so sound the shofar immediately. So the answer is no. Sounding the shofar has to be done in a there has to be a preparation, a spiritual preparation for sounding the shofar. The whole prayers in Judaism are built on very exact spiritual ladders and processes, even though we aren't aware of it. But the fact is, we're partaking of it. And the great, the tzaddikim and the Kabbalists, they know clearly what it is. In the Arizal's Siddur, it says exactly, what these deep, it's very complicated. So you can't just sound the shofar. You have to have all the preparations, a buildup. But somehow or other, the first Rebbe of Chabad, he was able to jump over that and sound the shofar. And sure enough, Napoleon lost. So it says Napoleon, before he lost, everyone was running away from Napoleon. They knew he was winning. As he came to the city of Lyozna, where the Alter Rebbe was, and he ordered that his soldiers should go to the house of the Alter Rebbe and bring back anything. It seems that Napoleon was a big sorcerer, and if he held something of a person, he could what they call it, what they call it, there's this thing that's called the sympathetic magic, that you hold something of somebody, you can put a spell on that person. It works, but because the Alter Rebbe was very afraid of it. He was very afraid, and he was afraid that Napoleon would do that, and therefore he said that everything should be taken out of the house, and the house should be burnt down. He ordered that his house should be burnt down. And before Napoleon got there, because he knew that that's what was going to happen, and that's what happened. Okay, so just one second. Okay, so let's jump to the last story. This is the main story that I wanted to tell. Okay, two stories. The Rebbe became ill. He became ill, and he fell ill in a place called Kfar Piena. And Kfar Piena was a place where the Gentiles were very kind, very nice. And one of the people allowed the Rebbe to stay at his house, and he asked the Rebbe for a blessing. And the Rebbe said, "What blessing do you want?" He said, "Well, my inn is not successful, and my sons, they want to take my sons to the army. My one son, he had a son. And also, I'm very old, I want long life." And the Rebbe blessed him. The Rebbe blessed him with these things. And they say that someone happened to, so this is also a whole story about how they came to this man's house years later. But one second, give me a minute. Give me a moment. Oh, I think the story goes like this. It's together with another story. I mean, these are really stories. Each one is a story on its own. So you know what? I'll skip over the other story. So they came to his house, and he showed them the letter. The Rebbe wrote a little letter, a little note. He put this letter up. There's also a whole long story involved here with two non-religious Jews that came to his inn, but let's skip over that for a second. People saw this letter that they had, and he said that he himself is already like 100 years old, and his son, who was strong like an ox, was not taken into the army, and that his business became tremendously successful afterwards because the blessing that the Rebbe gave. Everything. Okay. And finally, the third thing, number 3. The Alter Rebbe passed away. And he passed away. Before he passed away, they heard him say that he wanted to be buried in a place called Hadich. Hadich was very far away from where they were, and it was snowing. It was snowing outside, right? The Alter Rebbe passed away in Tevet, in the month of Tevet, and Tevet is still winter, so the snow is thick on the ground. And he passed away, and he heard the people that were with him heard him say that he wants to be buried in Hadich. Hadich mentioned Hadich. Hadich was a big journey. It was like 200 miles, something, a very long journey. But that's what the Rebbe said. Okay, now Napoleon had not yet been defeated. Napoleon was not yet defeated. Napoleon was still conquering. And they didn't know how were they going to get the Rebbe's body over to Hadich. If they bring it in a coffin, then the troops of Napoleon will think that maybe they're smuggling something and they'll open it up. If they see that it's the Alter Rebbe, they knew that Napoleon wanted to, get a revenge on him, so it wouldn't be good. So they didn't know what to do. So they decided what they're going to do is they dressed the Alter Rebbe up, they put him in a fur coat, and they sat him next to the driver. Sat him next to the driver. There were 4 people on a sled. In the sled, they had horses or dogs, whatever. I think horses. And they pulled the Alter Rebbe. They covered him up so you couldn't see his face clearly, which that was very common. You have an old person, he wants to be covered up. And that's how they traveled. So with the Rebbe, there was, I think the Rebbe's son was there, and there was other 2 Chassidim. And what they would do in order to warm up, whenever they wanted to warm up, because it was bitter cold, so they would stop off at an inn somewhere, and 2 of them would go in, and one would sit with the Alter Rebbe and watch it. And then afterwards, the 2 would come out after they warmed up and they drank a tea or whatever it was, and they would come out. And then the one that was standing there, he would go in. So no one would really notice anything. So 2 of them went in to the inn. They went into this tavern, whatever it was. And the owner of the tavern came over to them and said, "What have you got? You have special things, something special in your carriage?" And they said, "No." He said, "Well, why do you leave a person over there to watch over it? There's 2 people sitting on that table over there in the corner, and I heard them talking that they are planning that when you leave, that they're going to follow you and kill you and take whatever is in the. They think that you're guarding something valuable must be there." So he said, "Well, what should I do?" So he said, the owner of the place said, "Listen, don't pay for the tea you just drank. Pretend you're going outside to go to the bathroom, and then take off, right? Leave your hat here or something like that, like you're going to come back and go up." And so they said, "Okay." So they did it. They went outside and they said, "Excuse me, we'll be right back. We're just going out to go to the bathroom." They went out and they jumped on their sled and they drove away. So the robbers, they sat there and they waited, and they realized, they looked outside and they saw that the carriage wasn't there. They left their hats there, or whatever there was that they left. They left hat there, and they ran away. So they jumped on their horses and they ran after them. And amazingly, they didn't catch them, because usually a horse rider is much faster than a sled that's drawn on it. It's a burden over there. So either it was another place or it was at this place where they stopped, and 2 of them went in, and one sat there next to the Alter Rebbe, next to the Rebbe, and suddenly the Alter Rebbe started raising up like he's going to stand up. So they were very. So the person who was sitting with him next to him saw the Rebbe was raising up, and he was filled with trepidation. He just started shaking, didn't know what was shaking, and he got out of the carriage to see what was going on, and there was a pig that had settled under the carriage. The carriage was raised up above the ground, and a pig was sitting there underneath the Rebbe. And that's caused the Rebbe to the Rebbe's body. So we see that his soul somehow or other ruled over his body. I mean, don't ask me to explain it. I can't explain it. But whatever it is, the pig had an effect. It's an unclean animal. It had an effect on the Alter Rebbe. So we see from these stories that the Rebbe, even when he was alive, he knew exactly what was going to happen. And we see that it was the arch enemy of Napoleon, and Napoleon was beloved by everybody, right? Everybody liked Napoleon, except for the Tsar and those people that he wanted to conquer. So sometimes what we think is good is not really good. And sometimes what we think is not good is really good. And that in the end, what really is good will be revealed. That's why the Alter Rebbe lifted himself up from the pig. Even naturally, there'll be a division between what's good and what's not. That's the whole idea of the redemption, and that was begun by the Baal Shem Tov and the first Rebbe of Chabad. Have a good day with Mashiach. Now, see you tomorrow.